If you've ever felt eyes burning into the back of your neck, even when you're standing completely alone in an empty room, don't ignore it. Don't convince yourself it's just paranoia or the wind, because sometimes that feeling isn't in your head. Sometimes it's real, and sometimes it's already too late. Last year, at 22, I was dying inside, not with tears or dramatic breakdowns, just a slow, silent, hollowing out, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that makes everything feel distant and unreal. My job was a gray loop. Conversations sounded like static. Even my own face in the mirror looked like a stranger's. I was vanishing. I didn't want a vacation or fun. I craved silence so heavy it might press the life back into me. I wanted the world to forget I existed. One afternoon at work, I muttered without thinking, "I just want to go somewhere no one can find me." A coworker overheard and said, "Then you need Blackthorn Island." He described it like a punishment, a tiny speck off the coast of Maine. No tourists in the off-season, no nightlife, no cell service after dark. When the last ferry left each evening, the island emptied completely. Houses went dark. Roads fell silent. It felt like the world had abandoned it for 100 years. It sounded perfect. That same night, I found the listing. A one-room shoreline cottage. The photos were painfully ordinary. Faded wallpaper, old wooden floors, a single window facing the sea. The price was suspiciously low. Available immediately. No reviews. Every rational voice in my head screamed that something was wrong, but I was too exhausted to listen. When your mind is that empty, red flags blend into the background. I booked it before I could second-guess myself. The ferry ride the next evening was cold and gray. Thick fog clung to the water like a shroud. The island rose out of the mist like something that shouldn't exist. When I stepped onto the dock, the air smelled of salt and rotting kelp. The few locals who passed stared a second too long, as if memorizing my face. The cottage was smaller than the pictures suggested. One cramped room, a narrow bed pushed against the back wall, a mildew-scented kitchenette, a bathroom so tiny you had to step outside to turn around. But the surroundings made my skin crawl. Thick, wild brush and twisted pines crowded three sides of the house, branches scraping the walls like fingernails trying to get in. Only the ocean side was open, a single window with a thin, yellowed curtain that might as well have been glass. At night, anyone standing outside in the dark could watch me perfectly, and I would never know they were there. The door was the detail that truly unsettled me. Everything else looked decades old and forgotten, but the heavy deadbolt and thick chain lock, shiny, brand new, recently installed, like someone had prepared the cottage for something. I told myself it was just good security. As evening fell, the island emptied exactly as described. Cars vanished, boats sailed away, voices faded into the wind. By 9 o'clock, only the crash of waves and the distant moan of the foghorn remained. I walked to the tiny pub near the dock for dinner. The place was nearly empty. A handful of locals drank in silence. The bartender was friendly at first, until I mentioned the cottage. Her smile died. She wiped the same spot on the counter repeatedly and asked quietly, "You sure that's where you're staying?" I nodded. She looked like she wanted to warn me, but instead poured my drink faster and walked away. Second warning. On the walk back, I passed a hidden rocky cove. Tucked behind boulders was a small, fast-looking blue motorboat. It stood out sharply among the rusty fishing vessels and lobster boats. Something about it made my stomach twist. I stared too long, wind whipping my jacket, then forced myself to keep moving. Third mistake. Back at the cottage, I locked everything. Deadbolt, chain, I even wedged a chair under the handle. Then my phone started dying. No outlet would charge it. The battery drained from 20% to 0 in minutes. As if something was sucking the life from it, the screen went black. The cottage plunged deeper into darkness. I lay down, fully clothed, heart already racing. I told myself I'd leave at sunrise. Exhaustion eventually pulled me under. I don't know what time I woke, but the moment my eyes opened, I knew I wasn't alone anymore. The air felt thicker, heavy, watched. Then came the footsteps. Slow, deliberate, gravel crunching right outside the front door. I froze mid-breath. These weren't random steps. They were controlled, patient, like someone who had done this before. The footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. Silence, the kind that makes your ears ring. Then they moved closer, right up against the wood. My heart slammed so hard I was sure he could hear it. A flashlight beam sliced through the thin curtain like a blade. It swept slowly across the room. over the bed, across the floor, searching for the shape of my body. I squeezed my eyes shut and stopped breathing. The light lingered on the bed for an eternity, then clicked off. The door handle rattled. Click. It didn't open. A long pause. Then it rattled harder. Bang. The entire door shuddered violently. Bang. 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 Each blow was harder, more furious, like he was testing how much force it would take to break through. Terror flooded me. I slid out of bed and crouched beside the door, gripping the kitchen knife with sweaty hands. Then, everything stopped, dead silence again. And in that silence, a calm, low voice spoke from the other side of the door, a voice I had never heard before. "I know you're in there, Leo." My blood turned to ice. I had told no one my real name on this island. Not the ferryman, not the bartender, not a single soul. Yet he said it like we were old friends. The footsteps began circling the cottage, slow, dragging, scraping along the outer walls, round and round. I could hear his boots brushing through the brush, the soft scrape of branches. He was toying with me, enjoying the way my fear filled the tiny room. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. At one point, I almost prayed for him to smash the door down and end it. The waiting was pure torture. Every creak, every gust of wind made me flinch violently. Eventually, the footsteps faded away. Then, from the hidden cove, a small engine coughed to life. The blue motorboat purred across the black water and disappeared into the night. I didn't sleep again. I sat there until dawn, knife still clutched in my hand, eyes burning. At first light, I burst outside. Fresh boot prints circled the cottage. Again and again and again. Perfect circles pressed into the damp earth. Then, a straight line of prints led directly to the empty dock where the blue boat had been. I caught the first ferry out. I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't look back once. What still haunts me is this. That man didn't live on Blackthorn Island. He came by boat, specifically for me. On that exact night, he knew the cottage. He knew the layout. He knew my name. I asked my coworker later. He swore he hadn't told anyone. I believe him, but I do have a past. A messy, ugly one I thought I had buried. Some debts, some people I crossed. Things you can't outrun no matter how far you flee. Nothing on the surface has changed. Same apartment, same job, same routine. But late at night, when the world grows quiet and the lights dim, I still feel it. That cold prickle on the back of my neck. Like someone out there still knows exactly where I am. And next time, there won't be an ocean between us. There won't be a shiny new deadbolt. There won't be any warning at all.